Hello everyone, this is Eto, and I wanted to create these longer format videos just to show you a little bit of what I think about when I'm creating these, and just to show you behind the scenes of my thought process and what goes through my head when I create these. So first off, I started off with just a simple grid, a 2-point perspective grid, where I lay down the foundations of what's going to be my fine liners or my line art, if I may, of the watercolors. I start out with the simple box shapes. This is going to give me some of the perspective and also some of the scale that I want in the piece. It's important to lay these before going on to the fine lines, just because you want to have that scale and that presence of the building in your little notebook, especially because I'm doing this in a very small notebook. Having an idea of where the elements are going to be at. This doesn't have to be very detailed, but you can go as far as you want or as detailed as you want. At the end, it's going to be erased either way. After that, when I work on the fine line, I start with the nature part. I think it's the most organic, and it's going to be easier to work on that before actually going into the lines, just to make sure that nothing overlaps that much. And usually nature comes before, I guess, like it's in the foreground and it overlaps with some of the elements. So I try to have that first before any other lines or any other I would say columns or elements that will go behind. This time I actually made a car on the right side, and also like shopping carts, I guess, like something that a person was moving around. This is from a reference in Barranquilla in Colombia. It was given to me on TikTok, and somebody just DM'd me actually the place, the exact location of the buildings, and it was awesome because that helped me on my video editing process. I could just have the place right away. I didn't have to go and look for it. It's been a bit time consuming to actually go and look for the place in Google Earth, because I have to go to the streets and I have to go looking for the buildings and everything. So it tends to be a little bit time consuming. So when this person DM'd me with a place that she wanted to incorporate or wanted me to draw, she gave me like 4 options, and one of these was actually this building. So it was pretty awesome, pretty easy to start and creating the video as well. To continue with the drawing, this part is me using a thicker fine liner. This is a 0.2. The first one was a 0.1. What I do with this is I start making more shadows and making things pop up. This will help with perspective and help the viewer understand that some things are a little bit more important and also closer to them. Because we're working on a 2D perspective, it's better to have things pop up in different places. When the line art is finished, I usually erased all the pencil, because when you add the water, this can make things stick, and then it's a lot harder to use the eraser. First off, I started with the blue. I started with the sky. I think it's the easiest part to just go over, and making darker parts and clearer parts, just to have a little bit of a sense of what the scene looks like. And also with the plants, because I guess I just like having that part first, completely done, before starting with anything that's gonna be very plain, or just things that are going to need a lot less details. Plants and bushes usually need a lot more specifics in terms of shadows and highlights. So I like to have that first. Also, it's one of the things that I enjoy the most in my drawings. That's why I tend to be a little bit more careful with them. Then the walls, as this was a white building, so I used blues, like some hues that are gonna give that sense of texture in the wall, and it's not just gonna be barren, right? This is gonna help us understand the building and the shadows, where the sun is coming from, and also give it a more lively sense to the piece. I try to do some contrasts in the colors, just to have those that contrasty feeling, just to have some places that the viewer can actually go and observe. This is not a very detailed piece, it's going to be very expressive, right? The idea is for the viewer to look at it. If this was a commission, I would like the person to look at this piece and say like, oh, I remember that place, like I was there and I loved how things were overflowing in the building, and how nature was just coming out of the building, and it kind of seems like they were one with each other. Not specifically like the details, that the window was tinted or that something was in a certain place. That doesn't really matter. What matters most is the moment. It's like taking a picture, It's like being there in the moment and trying to observe everything, but not necessarily going into the nitty-gritty and saying like, oh, this is not where it was when I went there, right? The idea is for the viewer to feel like he or she can go back to the place in an instant. Like they glance over the piece and say like, oh, I remember that place, like that place brings me so much joy. That's what I try to do in any expressive piece. It's not about the whole detail, it's not about the perfect lines. That's why I try to do, I call them dirty lines, because I want it to be fast lines. I want them to be expressive in a way. At this part of the video, I'm trying to also give a sense of depth with the blues. I added some of the details of, there's like a cathedral or a monument there. That also gives that context around the building, and you kind of like feel that you understand what Barranquilla is about, with the cart and the colored carts and the blue taxi and the yellow taxi on the right, and the cathedral over there. Everything is very Latin, or very, I don't know how to express it in a way that somebody that hasn't come to any Latin American country can see. But we have many details. We have many cathedrals, and we have many churches that have a lot of detail. So that's very important when I thought about creating this piece and have that context. So if you stayed for the whole video, I appreciate you very much. And if you like my art, you can follow me on any of my social medias. It's all simplyeto on TikTok and on Instagram, or consider subscribing to this channel, and hopefully I can see you in the future. Let's keep doing some art.